Hey, this is Anthony from MakeWeirdMusic.com, and I'm here with Adrian Holovaty, who is broadcasting to us from Amsterdam. Hello, Adrian.
Hello.
Good afternoon. It's 5 a.m. here.
Yeah, 1 p.m. for me.
Awesome. So, I was wondering if you could introduce yourself and talk about Soundslice, where the idea came from, and go ahead. You do the talking.
Sure. So I'm Adrian. I'm a musician and web developer from Chicago. I just moved to Amsterdam about 2 months ago. And I run a website called Soundslice. And the premise is it's trying to give you all the tools possible to learn a given piece of music, all from your web browser. And we do that by giving you slow down, looping, listening to recordings, looking at sheet music, looking at videos, sort of combining all this stuff in a single interface to make it easy to learn tunes. You sort of have to see it to really understand it. But yeah, that's my full-time thing. It's a two-person company, and it's pretty awesome, if I may say.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I think it's such an incredible piece of technology. So, can you tell me, like, where did the idea for Soundslice come from, and why did you decide to take it upon yourself to, start a company around online sheet music?
Well, I do a lot of transcribing. I've been doing this for probably more than 10 years. And my process for like all of those 10 years has been listen to a recording and write out either on paper or in a plain text file on my computer the tab of the guitar notes. I can read music, but not very well, so I just sort of use tab. And for years, I would painstakingly transcribe these old jazz recordings, Django Reinhardt jazz guitar stuff. And I would come back to it a week later, and I wouldn't even understand my own transcription, even though I did the work of transcribing it. So I would always have to go back to the original source recording and listen to it in tandem with the tab that I had written out. And so that got me really, really craving a way of seeing tab synced with a real recording. And of course, there have been, for many years, programs that show you tab and they play a synthetic MIDI kind of a sound, but I hate that. It's horrible. It's a horrible way to learn how to make your guitar sound in a certain way, because it's not a human playing it. So I firmly believe the best way to learn, at least for my way of learning, the best way for me of learning how to play a tune is to listen to the real recording. So I wanted to make something that let me marry the two, a real recording along with tab or sheet music. So that was the original version of Soundslice, and that launched in 2012, and it worked for YouTube videos, where you could search for any YouTube video on our site and transcribe it, and the transcription would be such that it would be linked with the video. So you actually say, like, from this moment in the video to this moment in the video, it's playing this note, this string, and this fret. So it's very painstaking kind of a process. And it got a following, but the number one bit of feedback we had was, please add sheet music, not just tab, because I'm a piano player or I'm a horn player and I want to use this, but I can't use it if it's just tablature. So we decided to completely make a new product that was oriented around traditional sheet music instead of just tablature. Of course, it still does tablature, and that's what we have now. So the premise is you can create these interactive sheet music things, for lack of a better term. And yeah.
Well, I think that's a great high level answer to that. I know that you've put a tremendous amount of effort into Soundslice, and that I consider it a pioneering piece of web technology because of all the sheet music, the way you draw it out, the way it works in all web browsers. That makes it totally unique. Can you talk a little about that?
Well, all newer web browsers, yeah. A lot of the stuff behind the scenes is pretty bleeding edge. In other words, it only works in modern web browsers. So browsers that are younger than like 3 or 4 years old. So basically everyone is using a modern browser these days, but if you're stuck on a old Internet Explorer version at your office, it wouldn't work for you. But just as an example of the bleeding edge, I'll give you 2 examples of the bleeding edge, living on the bleeding edge. One is audio on the web. Audio and web pages has always been a fiasco. For many years, Flash was the only game in town. You had to use Flash in order to play audio in a web page. And fortunately, there's a new thing called the Web Audio API. I won't get into all the geeky details, but there's a new thing that lets you play audio in web pages, and that's what we use. However, when we first added that to Soundslice, it was so new that an auto update of the Google Chrome browser actually broke Soundslice because they changed the way that they wanted the thing to work. So I had to fix Soundslice to deal with a new stuff instead of old stuff. So it's weird. So the second thing is we're just about to launch offline mode later today, in fact.
Oh, congratulations.
So actually, by the time this is published, it'll exist, hopefully, unless it turns out to be horrible. And in my blog announcement, which I've just drafted, I point out that it only works in Google Chrome at the moment, but it will work in Firefox in 1 week because the upcoming version of Firefox will support this new technology. So it's super new stuff.
That's awesome. So can you tell us about how you ended up building the sheet music component and where that has led the product? And actually, you should probably talk about what the product offerings are. What do you sell through Soundslice, and what are your different customers like?
There are 3 parts of the product/business. One is that you can buy, it's a lesson marketplace. You can buy music lessons through our site. So it's pre-recorded music lessons. And we've got 10 courses at the moment and a couple dozen transcriptions of music, all done by indie artists, and they get the majority of the revenue, 70%. And the premise there is, it's like what I want when I learn a tune. I don't want just the transcription. I want it synced up with the real recording so I can actually hear it. So what you get when you buy these things is lifetime access to transcriptions or music lessons that are all written out, synced with audio and in some cases video of the teacher showing you stuff. So that's the first part of the business. And the second part is we have a product for music teachers called Soundslice for Teachers, which lets them create these interactive pieces of sheet music and then share them with students. And that's for a monthly fee, $20 a month. And then the third part is licensing to other companies, which is actually the biggest part of the business, but it's the part that our users don't really know or care about because it doesn't really affect them. And that's we work with almost 30 separate websites at this point who pay us a monthly fee to embed our player in their own site. So there's some big names there like Guitar World Magazine, TrueFire, which has awesome lessons, Premier Guitar Magazine, Jam Play, but not just guitar, it's other instruments as well because it's just sheet music, so it supports any kind of instrumentation that uses traditional standard notation.
Have you found adoption to be of Soundslice for guitarists to be the greatest adopters, or do you find it's people all over the map?
It's definitely strongest in the guitar world, just because that's where we come from, and that's where that's the people that I know, that I was able to tell about it, and it sort of organically grows like that. With that said, since we launched the sheet music stuff, and specifically since we launched this interactive piano keyboard view a couple months ago, it's been growing with other instruments too. So I'd say piano is our number 2 instrument. There's a couple of piano instructional sites that license it. And there's a couple other instruments too in terms of the licensing. And of course, people use it for all sorts of stuff. Like some people put orchestral scores in there with like 20 some instruments, or a high school band director put band pieces in there which have 20 some instruments. Percussion, because we added support a couple months ago. So it's all over the map, but most common is guitar, but it supports everything.
What are some of the major challenges you've had to overcome building Soundslice?
Making it fast enough to work in a web browser. It actually assembles the sheet music on the fly directly in the web page as you request it. So the reason for that is it actually wraps to fit your device. So if you're on a super small screen, it'll wrap the notation to fit the screen and only put 1 or 2 measures on every line, as opposed to if you're on a huge desktop screen, it'll put like 8 or so measures. So because that's all happening directly in your web browser, it's doing a ton of work, and it continues to be an interesting technical challenge to make that fast enough so that it's nice and responsive, and so you don't actually know that it's doing all that stuff behind the scenes. So there's a lot of technical challenges like that, but then the non-technical challenges are just getting people to know about it, and getting music teachers to use it, and getting musicians to sell their lessons on our marketplace platform. So that I'm a technologist first and foremost, and I always seem to discount the non-technological stuff. But that's really, that's a challenge, because I don't know about it as much as I know about the tech stuff.
Right. What about the drawing of sheet music? I would imagine if it was an easier thing to do, more people would do it, but you seem to be one of the only websites out there that allows for actual sheet music rendering in an HTML website.
Yeah, it's a deceptively very, very hard task. So compare it to drawing text. So if you have an essay or a newspaper article, you have word wrap, and say you have justification, where you have the words line up on both sides of both margins, left and right. So even someone who's not a computer programmer can sort of figure out how that's done. You just start at the left and keep putting words on the line until you run out of space, and then inevitably there's a tiny bit of space left where the next word wouldn't have fit, so you just take that space and divide it among the other words, and you're done. With sheet music, it's that kind of a thing, but it's made probably 1,000 times more difficult, because you also have a lot of other constraints. If you have more than one part, more than one instrument, if they're playing at the same time, the notes have to be perfectly vertically aligned. So you have to take that into account when you're doing that justification. And then there's the fact that the horizontal space after a note is proportional, but not exactly proportional to other notes. So the horizontal space after a whole note is more than the horizontal space after a half note or a quarter or an eighth note, but it's not perfectly proportional. If it were perfectly proportional, it would be way too long. Although, as a side note, that type of layout is used, I've learned, for dyslexic musicians, where that they really benefit from having a perfectly proportional note spacing. I'd like to implement that at some point, because actually it would be easier than the real way of doing it. So you have to account for that horizontal space, you have to account for the vertical alignment, and you have to nicely proportion it so that it's justified, because that's just the convention of sheet music throughout the centuries, is it goes all the way across the page. There's none of this ragged right like we have in text. So just that in itself is a tricky programming problem. And then to make it fast is what really makes it challenging. So I think that's why we don't see a lot of this kind of stuff being done, is it's just a lot of work and you have to juggle a lot of stuff. And at the same time, there's an element of art to it where it has to look good and sort of feel good. And I'm still learning how to best make it look good and feel good. And that just comes, I think, with looking at a lot of old pieces of sheet music and talking to musicians and trying to read it yourself and figure out what feels and looks good to you.
How much have you had to learn about sheet music layout and the traditional practices of, people who used to do it by hand and people or computer programs that do it now?
Well, I started from basically zero, and I've learned a lot. So the answer is a lot. I've learned about the traditional practices. It's called music engraving because it, in the old days, was actually engraving on the back side of a metal plate. So you would do everything in reverse and with these little stencils and a hammer bang into this metal plate in reverse, and then when it's reversed and it's printed, the music prints. So a lot of those techniques are clearly outdated, but some of them still sort of make sense. Like there's this thing called casting off, which is you consider the music that you need to print, and then you consider the amount of space you have, and you want to align it so that it's nice and even on the printed page. So we do something like that, but digitally. And there are other bits where the classic human by hand engraving is sort of replicated in software.
That sounds like a tremendous amount of work.
This is way too geeky and
no,
and
actually,
if anyone's still interested, I'm surprised.
I'm definitely interested, and this site is all about details that most people wouldn't be interested in. So please go ahead and get as detailed as you like. Can you tell us how you use the website? Like, I'm sure it solved some personal problems for you. Like, Soundslice is filling several needs in your life. Where did it come into play?
Totally. Whenever I want to learn a piece of music, I stick it in Soundslice, and it's super effective. That's my way of learning now, and it's also like my library of stuff that I'm working on. So just last night I was transcribing a YouTube video of this really nice chord melody thing, and I pop it into Soundslice so that I can come back to it later and hear the original and see the YouTube video and then see the notes. So I love it just for learning stuff and also keeping track of all the stuff that I've learned and transcribed. And then on the teaching side, I before I just moved to Amsterdam, I taught a weekly gypsy jazz guitar class in Chicago for 4, maybe 5 years. And I loved using it with my students. I would show them something in class. Maybe it's like a little lick or a chord progression or something. And then I would go home and record myself playing it and pop it into Soundslice and then send the students the Soundslice thing. And to a person, they all say, wow, this is super useful. Like, some of them were even joking, why do I even need to come to class? I just want to use this Soundslice thing and learn this stuff. Because you can just listen to it 20 times in a row, really get a sense of it, do it at your own pace, slow it down. You don't have to worry about annoying the teacher or annoying your fellow students. So I've really enjoyed using it with students too. And then we have this new lesson marketplace, and I've been learning some stuff from that as well. Some neo-soul guitar, which I know nothing about. I did know nothing about. Now I know a little bit about it because we have some courses. And it's some cool stuff.
Yeah, so I'm sure having a product like this has introduced you to all sorts of new kinds of music and ways of using it that you hadn't anticipated. Can you describe anything like that?
Yeah, one interesting one is with a high school band. They are using it in comparing their own band's performance to a real performance. So it's like some big piece of music, maybe it's like a 5-minute long band concert, thing, and they record their own high school band playing it. They pop it in a Soundslice, and then they get a source recording from some professionals who play the same exact piece, same arrangement, and also throw it in there. And then using the fact that we have multiple audio sources, they distribute it to their students, the Soundslice interface. And so the students can actually see, like, they press play, it starts off with the professional recording, and you see the playhead go by, and then at any time they want, they can switch back to their high school performance and just sort of get a sense of how it differs. What parts are good, what parts are bad. I had another example of a teacher who was dealing with a student who did not, like, the teacher told the student, look, you're not playing it right. You need to change your intonation or whatever it was. And the student was like, no, I'm playing it right. It sounds good. So then the teacher recorded himself, the teacher, playing it, put it in Soundslice, and put the student's recording in Soundslice, and the student was able to compare them and actually got to see, oh, yeah, okay, now I see what's up. And of course you could have done that just by sending MP3s, but the difference is when you see it synced with the sheet music and everything's synced, you can, as soon as you toggle the audio, it goes to the other performance and it picks up where the other one left off. It just takes it to the next level. So those are some use cases that I wouldn't have thought of.
One thing I love about Soundslice is it is not in any way detrimental to the music industry. It's not taking something away or giving something away for free. You actually are supporting musicians. Was that ever your intent, or do you have any sort of stance on Soundslice as a tool for musicians to support their art as craft?
Definitely. That is fundamental to my beliefs, our beliefs as a company, even though that sounds a little bigger than it should be because it's only 2 people. Our company's beliefs. So we've used that as a guiding principle. There have been a couple cases where we had a question, something came up, like one of the musicians who's selling lessons with us wanted to reuse his lesson as sort of like a demo for a job he was trying to get that maybe it was a little bit competitive with Soundslice. And so we're faced with the question, well, we did a bunch of work to help him get into Soundslice, and now he's going to use that and sort of try to turn around to compete with us. And we made the decision, like, we looked back at our this big fundamental principle. We help musicians, and we decided, of course, we'll let them do it. Like, we're here to help musicians, not only the teachers who use us to teach their stuff, but the students who learn through our software. So yeah, I completely see it as a tool for musicians first and foremost. It's not about connecting with your fans or any of the stuff that a lot of other music companies do, especially in like the internet startup world. A lot of the music stuff is like about streaming music or figuring out when bands are going to be in your town or merchandise stuff. With us, we're all about the musicians and actually learning music. We don't know or care anything about gear. It's just literally playing music. That's a reflection of me too, because I don't know anything or care anything about gear or touring or merchandise or recording. I just care about playing good music.
What's the response been from the musical community and your musician customers, the full-time musicians that are using Soundslice?
Man, it's basically universally loved. It's funny when we get emails from people who just found out about us. In more than half the time, they say, "How did I never know about this?" Like it's still kind of like a secret. Like, because we have done zero marketing and we're super small potatoes, so no one really knows about us. But yeah, the response has been tremendous. People really, really like it. So marketing suggestions welcome.
Are there any musicians, like, are you selling a lot of content, through lessons and these transcriptions, or is it still kind of an up-and-coming thing as part of your business model?
It's somewhere in between up-and-coming and selling a lot. I think if you asked the musicians who sell their lessons in the marketplace, they'd be very happy with the amount of money they made so far. For instance, one of the people in the marketplace has been a professional musician since the 1970s. He's done many albums, tours, instructional materials, you name it, he's done it. He said, after having launched his stuff on Soundslice for only a few days into it, he said, "Wow, this in terms of return on investment for the amount of effort I had to make, for the amount of money and just personal fulfillment that I've got out of it, is the best thing that I've ever done in my music career."
Wow.
I got to get him on video saying that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, because I mean, from the teacher's perspective, for these lessons in the lesson marketplace, you record them once, and of course that takes some time to plan out your lesson plan and do the recording and all that. But from then on, you just sit back and watch the money come in, and you're done. It's like the whole make money while you sleep thing. And of course, the students love it because it's this unparalleled learning experience where they've got the video of their instructor, they've got exactly what they're playing synced with the video. It's awesome. It's at a price point that's less than an hour-long lesson or workshop with the same exact person, where you would get probably 5% of the content.
So that's an interesting thing. How can you tell us how much more rich and experienced Soundslice is for students and teachers than just here's a book, study it, or here's a video, go watch it?
Oh man, so the book is the worst, because you're trying to describe something using the wrong sense. You're trying to describe sound with sight. It doesn't make any sense. That's like writing an essay about a smell. It doesn't make any sense at all. So if you want to learn music, you got to listen to it with your ears. That's like the fundamental thing of Soundslice, the fundamental philosophy. So learning from a book. Caveat. I don't want to go to extremes. So I'll say the caveat is if you're a professional musician or someone who's maybe majored in music, where you really know your stuff, you can then maybe see something on paper and hear it in your head, or you just be able to play it instantly. For that crowd, music on paper is totally fine. But for the 95% of us who are not like that, I don't think it's a good way of learning music. And then what was the other question? Just learning from videos in comparison. Well, if you learn from, say, a YouTube video or like a 1980s style VHS tape or instructional DVD, it's okay, but it's highly dependent on the instructor, and it's also highly inefficient in terms of the use of time. And it also has problems with the just the interface. It's very linear, so take these one at a time. So the inefficiency, if you're watching a DVD, you'll often see the instructor say, okay, we're going to play this chord. First, you want to put your finger on the A string 7th fret. Then you want to put this finger on the D string 6th fret. Compare that to Soundslice, where the instructor assumes that you're seeing the notation and the tab and the chord chart at the same exact time. So they don't have to bother with any of that. So it cuts down all that BS that's really kind of a waste of time. So that makes the lesson more efficient. And then when it comes to just the linear layout of video, I want to be able to skip parts that I don't care about. And if I'm on YouTube, the way I do that is I take the tiny little playhead and move it forward. How far forward? I don't know. I just kind of like experiment and then see a split second of the video and then see if the guy's done talking about the boring thing that I didn't care about. But if you have the Soundslice interface where it syncs the video with a notation, you can use that. It doubles as navigation. So you know exactly which moment the guy is finished talking with the thing that you didn't care about. So it's just a better experience. Plus, for the things, like the geeky features like slowing down the video without changing pitch and looping sections. You couldn't do that on VHS tape. Maybe with some DVD players you can do looping, but it's really a horrible interface. Maybe you select the start point and then you have to watch it and then you just hit the button at the stop point. Horrible interface compared to just dragging on the notation with perfect precision. So much better.
So you haven't talked about how musicians actually use Soundslice. It is a presentation and playback mechanism, but it is not a composition tool. You don't draw out your notation or anything within the app. So how do people use Soundslice and get their sheet music and tablature into the app and then synchronize it with the video?
You're expected to create your notation in whatever program you're already using to create the notation. So that could be Sibelius, Finale, Guitar Pro, Muse Score, which is free, Notion, basically any notation program out there. Because all those programs export something called Music XML, which is the file that you then put into Soundslice. And then we just grab the notation out of there. And then when it comes to syncing it with real recordings, you have a bunch of different options. You can upload an MP3 to us. You can put in a YouTube URL, Vimeo. You can upload video directly to us as well. And then once you've either uploaded or pointed at that audio or video, you use our sync point editor, which is this web-based thing where we show you your notation and we show you the waveform. And all you have to do is listen to the recording and tap your keyboard on the downbeat of every bar. And if you make a mistake, you can just mess around with the sync points manually by dragging them around. So hopefully it's easy to use and intuitive. And it handles any case of syncing that you would want. So a lot of people assume when they first hear about our syncing that, oh, that means that my recording was recorded with a metronome. My recording wasn't recorded with a metronome, so it's going to break your system, right? Like almost wanting us to admit like failure or something. But no, we handle that too, because the sync points are wherever you want to put them. And even if there's a fermata, like a hold, a pregnant pause in the music, you can have what we call inner bar sync points, where like the first half of the bar is in time, and then you can specify that the last two beats hang a little bit longer than just being strictly in time.
How many people have thrown you scenarios at this point that you've had to, that have been like, oh my goodness, I had no idea people would do that? Total surprises, or, things that have introduced what you thought should be functional, and then you realize what you've done doesn't support what they need, those kinds of things.
That happens, all the time. I love that, frankly, because that's like my to-do list. That helps me prioritize what to do. My biggest challenge is just when it comes to the product development is prioritization. And what do we work on next? I've got a huge list of stuff that I want to add, but I don't know what to do first. So basically, I was just chatting with a friend about this the other day. My little rubric, or whatever you want to call it, is the priority is decided basically 50% by paying customers, 10%-ish by potential paying customers, and then the remainder 40% by what I think would be good, sort of my gut, what I want personally and what I think would be good. So mostly driven by the paying customers. But anyway, that doesn't answer your question. But yes, there are many cases where what people actually do with the software surprises me to the point where I have to fix it so that it actually does what they want. That could be anything from the notation not supporting the things that they want to do, to just the way that they want to embed it in their site. Like when Guitar World magazine started licensing our software, they put like 8 Soundslice embeds in a single web page, and I never actually tried that myself because I didn't have any reason to. And it turns out that like web browsers have a limit on the number of audio players that they can have currently running, and in Google Chrome that is 6. So on that example with 8 players, the first 6 worked and then the second 2 didn't work, so I had to fix that. So yeah, you never know how people are going to use your stuff, but that's the name of the game with making software for human users.
What does the future of the product look like? Do you have a vision of 8 to 12 months out where you want it to be?
I don't. I probably should, but I don't think that long ahead. 12 months. In 12 months from now, I have no idea what the world will be like. That's like an eternity in internet time.
What are some major features that you're working on for Soundslice that you wouldn't mind sharing?
So one is offline mode, which I've been working on for a few weeks, and it's launching today. It will have launched by the time this gets posted. And let's see. At some point, I'd like there to be a notation editor, so you could just input the notation directly in Soundslice as opposed to having to use a separate program. I think that will start with the expectation that you'll just use our notation editor to massage the notation that you've already imported in there in case there were some import errors, or if you had you want to make some changes without doing a round trip back to your notation program. Of course, that's a big project. The biggest thing is getting more lessons in our lesson marketplace and getting more teachers to use it. For almost 2 years now, I've been working nonstop on the product itself, and it's gotten to a point where it does 90% of what people want. Or it does 100% of what 90% of people want. For those other 10% of people, they want it to do other stuff. Another ongoing thing is making the notation richer in terms of the types of notation it supports, and making it look better and clearer and more beautiful. But that's just like an ongoing thing. Like every week we're making improvements to that. And that's not the kind of thing where like it's particularly sexy to talk about. Like I'm not going to make a huge product announcement saying we tweaked our notation a little bit. That's just a, par for the course. You just keep improving it.
That's awesome, man. I really I can't wait to see what you end up making, and I'm really looking forward to the future of the product. I love using it, and I love bugging you with the ways I break it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Well, I think that's a great breakdown of Soundslice. Is there anything else you want to say about the product?
I probably should have something to say, but I'm not savvy enough to know what to say.
All right, cool. Well, if people want to reach out to you, you're on social media. Everything as Soundslice, right?
Yes.
All right, twitter.com/Soundslice.
Yeah, Soundslice. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Or just email feedback@soundslice.com or adrian@soundslice.com.
Awesome.
We read all those and respond.
Thank you so much for your time, Adrian. I appreciate it.
Thank you. See you online.
All right, see ya.